So this is speech perception, okay? And then today we speak about first theory, which is the motor theory, okay, right? And I want you can open your books, okay, and focus on this, take this section. But before that, I want to do a few things. So recap about the videos. So as we have seen in the videos, we have talked about the co-articulation phenomenon, okay, and then we have spoken about the acoustic analysis, and this is some information that will help us in understanding the motor, okay, theory. Another thing we have to recapitulate is a bit of the speech production. Okay, so the first thing we have to recapitulate is that it postulates that gestures rather than sounds, gestures that you say the vocal apparatus, okay, etc., rather than sounds represent the fundamental unit of mental representation in speech. Okay, so focus on the gestures. Speech production says also that when we speak, we attempt to move our articulators to particular places in specific ways. Okay, articulation. We have seen the details, okay? Yeah, let's not talk about the details. Each of these, I just focus on the main ideas which we will rely on for the motor theory. Each of these movements constitutes a gesture, okay? The vocal apparatus. O, E, etc. Okay? The motor part of the speech production system takes the sequence of words you want to say and comes up with a gestural score, movement plan. So, semantics, conceptual, lemma, phonological, and then you come up with a gestural score, movement plan to manifest the words, okay, that you want to talk about, okay? A movement plan that tells your articulators how to move. So this is speech production as well, okay? Now, the motor theory. So before we go into this, now let us discuss together what you have been able to, the ideas that you have been able to get out of the section. Okay, you can take the section, put it in front of you, and yes, please.
I think the main idea of the modern theory is that it says that we perceive the speech in terms of gestures rather than sound.
Yes. So that's why I am recapitulating this part in relation to speech production, the gestural score, the movement plan, because the perception system relies more on this. Okay, it's very significant for our perception process to take place and to understand what we hear. Okay, very good. Yes?
It's a purpose that gestures rather than sounds represent the fundamental unit of the mental representation of the particular speech.
Okay, the same idea. Yes. Yeah.
I think that this theory came as an alternative to the previous theory that says that we can that listeners perceive speech in terms of the acoustic signals. So they find it difficult to analyze these acoustic signals.
Yeah, alone, acoustic signal alone, they, yeah.
Because
Good.
of interference between the audience and the articulation that occurs.
Yeah.
So
And also because the acoustic signals, they are not enough. The acoustic unknown, they are not enough. As you have seen, as you have read in the section, sometimes they play the recording of the acoustic signal in one ear and then in the other ear, but they can't perceive, okay? Which means that the gestures are important. Okay, good. Yeah, you want to say something? You want to say, yeah.
There's something else that we find out that gestures are more related to phonemes than sounds.
Not sound, but acoustic signals. Okay,
Yes.
something in there. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. Yes.
Also, the modern theory argues that the vocal tract of every person is different from another person, and so the sound waves that come from a particular vocal tract of that person is also different from the sound waves of a other person. And then, but still, like you say, the phonological like perception of people is somehow blind to this physical difference. For example, take for example sound P, the sound waves of the sound P is different from person to another. But still, we perceive that it's P, not B.
Yeah, good. Maybe it's very heavy or light, but it is still okay. So here comes the role of this categorical perception module, which we will see later on. Okay, and we will come back to these variations that are, let's call them, they are not significant because they are not real variations. Okay, there may be variations in the way it is produced due to differences in the vocal apparatus of the two people, but they are not real variations. Okay, yeah.
The assumption also emphasizes on the visualization of vocal tracts, okay, in an interaction. Okay, so when you see, when you perceive the sound, and at the same time you see how the person speaks, you tend to identify the sounds quickly. In regard to, in comparison, when you just listen, okay, you tend to find some words that are very difficult to understand because you cannot really, because people cannot identify sounds, but they can identify easily how the vocal tracts produce the sounds.
Yes, so good.
By just focusing on, for example, how the mouth moves and associated with the sounds, okay? Tend to figure out
perception takes place. Yeah. Perception takes place when there is the vocal. Okay, and here I just want to refer to when I was speaking with the students for this training that is going on for semester 6 students. And I was talking about teaching listening, and as a beginning I wanted to show them that why listening is important, and one of the problems related to listening for the students. Because listening very much looks like a phone conversation, right? And when you receive a phone conversation, usually especially for English, native speaker of English, how do you find it? Difficult, okay? Quite difficult. Sometimes even in dialectal Arabic, or even in your native language, you find it difficult. Can you tell me why? Yes. You don't see the gestures, okay? You just have the sounds, the words, phonemes, etc., but you don't see the gestures, okay? And that's why listening for students, when they are doing listening in a class for learning English, they find it a little bit tough, okay? Why? Because of the same phenomenon. They just hear the sounds, the words, but they don't have the people in front of them to see the gestures. Okay? Yeah.
Yeah, but even those visual gestures have effects on how to perceive speech. This is what we saw with the Magyar effect.
That's coming later. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, but let us take just the idea that gestures, which we are also repeating here, that they are important. Can you move on beyond gestures? Yeah.
Also the motor theory.
But just focus on the motor theory, okay? We will come back to other theories later.
The motor theory seeks to explain how a particular person perceives the acoustic stimulus as one of the main context. For example, we're talking about the formants and the formant and formant transitions, which is divided into two levels, the lowest level and the highest level.
So what happens in this case? Can you explain more? Can you explain more?
Concerning the formants and
This is your idea, yes.
Yeah. Concerning the formant transitions, according to it's divided into two levels: the lowest frequency and the highest frequency. The lowest frequency, for example, we take the first formant, okay, for a vowel, and the first formant transition, and the second, the highest level we take, for example, the second formant and the second formant transition.
So what is the role of this?
It reveals the way how a person perceives the acoustic stimulus of a particular.
So there is something true about what you say, the idea of using different formants and different frequencies, and we will come back and see the figures in themselves, okay, and see why, okay? Yes?
I think what she is talking about is the perceptual consistency.
What?
Perceptual consistency.
Perceptual?
Eliciting the same linguistic.
Okay, good. Anybody else? Yeah. There is another, yes.
I think what she is referring to is the speech module. The fact that listeners have a certain self-monitor of the speech that they are receiving.
Yes. Good.
Internal ability to follow the speech, to distinguish between the real speech sounds and non-speech sounds.
Good. Yeah. And this is what we're going to talk about as selection module and preempting. Selection module and preempting. The perception system, okay, is not random in the sense that it doesn't digest everything it hears. It only digests and lets go the real sounds. While the others, which are like noise or whatever, let them down. Don't bother about this inside, okay? So this is we're going to see it like it's a module advocated by some people called like selection module and preemption. Let me explain something, okay? Many of the theories that that we have in psycholinguistics, they are not final yet. They are theories, and there isn't enough proof for them. Some of the theories you have enough scientific evidence, biological evidence, etc., to justify them. But there are others, no, they like these ones, okay? So this is very important to bear in mind, okay? So these are theories that attempt to explain, okay? And they provide reasons, they provide some data, but still it needs further work, okay?
An example of these theories that are not like final yet, concerning speech perception, there are people who claim that when the hearer listens to a kind of speech, to differentiate between what is the real speech that belongs to the language and the negative sounds, they try to say whatever they hear, they try to say it in order to analyze other kind of analysis to what is being said.
Yeah, but this is related to the speaker, and then the hearer is telling the other to repeat.
The same thing, just to analyze the speech that is produced by the speaker.
I haven't really grasped it. Can you do this again? Yes, come on.
Okay, there's a kind of like, let's say, what you have seen in the speech production before the speaker produces the speech.
Yes.
He tries to make sure of it that he is producing
The speaker.
Yeah.
Yes.
Concerning the hearer, he does the same. When he gets the speech, he tries to make sure that he heard the right sounds.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, this is something normal. So let us, yes, finally, we're going to listen to you. Yes. Yes, go ahead.
There is this idea of duplex perception. It is when we perceive a given simultaneously a given speech signal, but in two different ways.
Variations.
First as a chirp or as a whistle.
Yeah, that's a noise.
But when
That's a
in
noise.
context, we perceive it as a complete linguistic feature.
Yes. We're going to see that figure and talk about this story of artificially presenting acoustic signals to a hearer. Okay, it's figure, I don't remember the number, but we're going to talk about this figure. Okay. Something else you want to add? Okay, good. So this mother theory, it claims that if we figure out, starting from our discussion, that's what we have started with, if we figure out what gestures created a speech signal, we can figure out what gestural plan was. Okay, so the gestures and then gestural plan and then of course the sound. This takes us back to the sequence of syllables or words that went into gestural plan. Okay, so as a perceiver, as somebody who is listening, hearing, so you listen, you have a look at the gestures and you know the story of the gestural plan, and of course you can understand what is the sound. Okay, so this is how perception starts. Okay, by knowing what the gestures are, we can tell what the set of words was that produced that set of gestures. Okay? Albin Lieberman and his colleagues proposed that rather than trying to map acoustic signals directly to phonemes, we map acoustic signals to the gestures that produce them. What does it mean here, the story of mapping here? What does it mean? Yes?
Yeah. I think the meaning here is that it's difficult to match particular phoneme to particular.
So that's the, in order to move quickly. So the map, it means match. Here map, it means match or relate, link. Yes, go on.
So
Difficult to match.
it's difficult to match a specific phoneme to a specific acoustic signal.
Yes, okay.
But this is the point here.
Uh-huh.
Of the interference between phonemes.
So rather than trying to map acoustic signals directly to phonemes, we map them to the gestures. Okay? So you have noise, you listen to noise. Now, the noise that you listen to, you don't relate it, you don't match it to the phonemes. But you match it with your eyes to the gestural plan in order to understand and figure out the phoneme. Okay? I repeat again. Rather than trying to map, to match, to link acoustic signals. So you receive, for example, from me, acoustic signals, okay? Rather than for you attempting to match these acoustic signals directly to the phonemes, okay? What do? You map them to my, okay, gestures and my movements, plans, etc. in order to facilitate more the perception process. This is the point, yes?
Does it have to do with the example which was like given here? Is that when we are in a noisy place and then you are talking with a partner who is like a bit far from and because of the too much noise there, you can't hear every word, every.
So what do you do in that case? Just for you?
Focus on the motion movement.
Yeah, of course, that's right, yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah, this is something that happens all the time. But when there is more noise, you focus more on the gestural plan, okay? Like in the case you have mentioned, okay? Also, but like for the telephone conversations or listening, recorded listening or whatever, so here it is not here, but it creates difficulty. So okay. In their words, so this is a repetition of the same idea using a reference taken from their publication. The relationship between perception and articulation will be considerably simpler. Perception, for like in this context, and me, articulation. So the relationship between perception and articulation will be considerably simpler than the relationship between perception and acoustic stimulus or signals. Okay? They further state that perceived similarities and differences will correspond more closely to the articulatory than the acoustic similarities among sounds. Perceived similarities will correspond more closely to the articulatory than the acoustic similarities among the sounds. Anybody can? Yes? It's the same idea, okay?
Since we are perceiving
Not something new.
Since we are perceiving the sounds in terms of how we articulate them, similarities also are related to the way we articulate them rather than what we hear. It's the same.
So that's exactly the story. Example, which you have, of course, taken from your section. Co-articulation phenomenon. D versus do. I have mentioned that before. Now what happens in here? Flat lips for D, flat lips, okay? And poking out rounded lips for do, okay? Acoustic signals are different for D and do. The acoustic signals when you hear D, and the acoustic signals when you hear do, and you formulate them, represent them in the form of a spectrogram, they are going to be different. So that's why the acoustics is lacking behind, and that's why we have this theory of motor theory. So though the acoustic signals are different for D, do, but still we have the same sound there. Okay? So therefore, our gestures is more important than, okay, the acoustics. But the core component of the gesture is the same regardless of the phonological context or the acoustic context. Okay? So there is the... Yes, please.
I think this is related to the concept of allophones in phonology. A phoneme can be represented in different ways.
Yes.
Different allophones.
Yes.
Okay, so it depends on the context, on the phonological context in which it.
Can you give us example? Allophones? Yes. To go quickly. Yes, Khadija.
The sound P, we can have the just P, we
Uh-huh.
can have the aspirated P,
Uh-huh.
and
Okay.
P can be
And P, normal one. Okay. So it's the same. Okay. It's the same. Okay. So allophones is related to this story of, okay, of what we are talking about in here. Motor theory example again. So thus, relying on this, the differences between the two acoustic signals will not cause you to perceive two different phonemes, as long as the gestures that created those two different acoustic signals are the same. And when you hear, like you have allophones, like you have different sounds. Let's not talk about allophones. Like if you have two different sounds, when you have D, do, like if you have two different sounds, if you just rely on the acoustic signals. But when you go into the gestures, they are the same. Okay, so this is the idea in this quotation. Selection, another component of the motor theory, selection module and preempting. Somebody already talked about it. Who talked about the selection? You talked about selection? Somebody? When we were discussing, somebody talked about selection. You? Yes? Can you? Somebody talked about selection as well. Okay? I don't remember, but anyway. So what does it mean, selection module or preempting? It's in your section. Asma?
some noises and some sounds to
Yes, good. Very good.
meet in the
Yes.
unconscious.
Yes. Yes, that's good. It's related to noise and the sound. The real sound and the noise
The noise is
accompanying the sound. Okay? Yes, please.
I remember there's an example here, like when you say a word and then there's like, for example, cough. So, for example, like you don't care about the cough, which is like a sort of noise, but the cough could, for example,
Noise.
be between in the middle of the word, like
It could be whatever.
yeah, or before or after.
Yes, so it's and then what happens for the perception system? What happens? And here is what we mean by selection. Yes, selecting what? The real sounds and the other noise in order not to digest it, not to perceive it, not to go through it. Okay, so it's this noise. Let's not bother about it. Okay, so and this is what we mean by the selection module. So the motor theory is complemented by this component. Motor theory also seeks to explain how a person can perceive an acoustic stimulus as a phoneme in one context, but as a chirp or a buzz in another context. It suggests that speech perception is accompanied by a naturally selected module. This is the selection module. This is the module called selection module. Now what does it do? This speech perception module monitors, okay, inside somewhere. It monitors what you hear, what you listen to. It monitors incoming acoustic stimulation and reacts strongly. It is very active, okay? And then when it monitors, what does it do exactly? When it recognizes an incoming stimulus as speech, it preempts other auditory processing systems, preventing their output from entering consciousness, like noise, for example, coughing or whatever. Then this selection module preempts other auditory processing systems in the perception. It tells them, and it prevents the incoming, okay, the digestion of the, yes, that's the selection filter. It's like a filter. Very good. That's the exact word. Continuation. This principle of preemption explains why formants or formant transitions are perceived as chirps or high-pitched whistles when played in isolation, but as phonemes when played in the context of other speech sounds. We're going to go to it, this figure 2.7 in order to explain this, because look at the, can you go through it, okay? To page 60. Okay, I couldn't find it online, but that's why I didn't write it in the, okay? Okay.
Maybe it's on the other.
Yes, Eunice, can you help with that? I think it has to do with the other place. The chair can move it and then.
زي ما جديد هذا.
Okay, let me do it again.